Exploring the Beatles' journey, a timeline of their iconic trip to India. February 15, 1968. On February 15, 1968, George, Patty, John, Cynthia, and Jenny departed for India. On February 16, 1968, they arrived in Delhi. George recalled, "There were reporters from all over the world on the plane. Throughout the flight to Delhi, I pretended to be asleep to avoid having to talk to them. At 8:15 a.m., their plane touched down, and they were greeted at the airport by Mal Evans, their loyal assistant, alongside actress Mia Farrow. Mal had arranged 3 cars for the group to embark on their 150-mile journey from Delhi to Rishikesh. John shared his thoughts, saying, "I came here to discover the role I am meant to play. I want to understand how far I will go." February 19, 1968. On February 19, 1968, Paul McCartney, his then-girlfriend Jane Asher, Ringo Starr, and his wife Maureen Starkey boarded a flight to India. February 20th, 1968. Paul, Jane, Ringo, and Maureen arrive in Delhi. Since the media was now aware of what was happening, their arrival attracted much more attention. When they disembarked from the plane, after a grueling 20-hour flight, they were met at the steps by a television crew. The journey takes them through various scenic and culturally rich areas. The Beatles arrive at the Maharishi Mahesh Yogi's ashram in Rishikesh. They settle into their accommodations and begin their stay. February 19th, March 6th, 1968. Study and meditation. The Beatles participate in meditation sessions, spiritual teachings, and discussions led by Maharishi Mahesh Yogi. They also spend time exploring the local area and enjoying the serene environment. George's birthday at the Maharishi Ashram, February 25th, 1968. George Harrison's birthday was celebrated at the Maharishi Ashram, marking a memorable occasion amid the tranquil surroundings of the ashram. February to April 1968. Most of the songs for the Beatles were written during a transcendental meditation course with Maharishi Mahesh Yogi in Rishikesh, India. Paul commented on his songwriting experience in India. "During my time there, I wrote a couple of pieces. One was a song titled I Will, which at the time had no lyrics. I also crafted a segment of Obla Di Obla Da. We would venture into the village to watch films, where a screen was set up, and the locals would gather to enjoy the show. I vividly recall walking along a forest path from the camp to the village, strumming my guitar and singing, "Desmond has a barrow in the marketplace." It was an incredibly inspiring atmosphere. John Lennon remarked, "We wrote about 30 new songs collectively. Paul contributed around a dozen. George claims he has 6, and I wrote 15. Lennon engaged in communal dining, enjoyed vegetarian meals, and practiced yoga. Most days were spent listening to the soothing sounds of the Ganges from the ashram's roof while playing music together, forging deeper connections both personally and creatively. Cynthia later reflected on the trip, saying, "Among us, only John and George truly felt the need for meditation. They eagerly absorbed new ideas and philosophies, with George embracing Indian culture, particularly through the sitar." March 1st, 1968, departure of Ringo Starr and Maureen Starkey. Ringo Starr and his wife Maureen departed from Mumbai, India, returning to the United Kingdom. This marked Ringo as the first member of the Beatles to leave. Reflecting on his experience, Ringo stated, "The food was impossible for me due to my allergies to various ingredients. I brought 2 suitcases, one filled with clothes and the other stocked with Heinz beans." In early March, Yoko separated from her husband and performance partner, Tony Cox. After getting John's address in India, she began writing to him regularly. Gradually, the tone of her letters became less artistic and intriguing and more flirtatious. Cynthia reflected on the deterioration of her relationship with John during their time in India. She shared her thoughts, noting the gradual distance that developed between them. "The second honeymoon I'd hoped for didn't happen. John grew increasingly distant and indifferent toward me day by day. He would wake up early and leave the room right away. He spoke to me very rarely, and after a couple of weeks, he said he planned to move into a separate room because he needed solitude. He explained that it was for better meditation, and they would see each other quite often in the small camp. He started ignoring me, both in private and in public. Others either didn't notice or tactfully stayed silent. I tried my best to understand what was happening and asked John to explain what was bothering him. He started dodging the issue, saying it was all due to meditation. I just can't feel the same way as before, he told me. I'm trying to concentrate. It has nothing to do with you. Leave me alone. At that time, I didn't know that every morning John would first go to the post office to check for letters from Yoko. She wrote to him almost every day. When I found out much later, I was deeply hurt. I did everything to make him comfortable, tried to understand him, agreed with him on everything, and had no idea that Yoko had already set her traps everywhere, pulling him further away from me. John confided, I began to see Yoko not merely as an intelligent woman, but as someone who stirred deeper feelings within me. This admission marked a significant shift in his perspective, highlighting the evolving nature of his emotions during this tumultuous period. Actress Mia Farrow at Kennedy Airport after her return from India via London. Mia interrupted the planned 3-month course of transcendental meditation with Maharishi Mahesh Yogi for 6 weeks. Photo by Joe Farrington, March 9th, 1968. In her autobiography, Mia detailed that once Maharishi invited her alone for a meditation session in his room. After they finished meditating, he embraced her with his hairy hands. Was it a sexual advance or not? Mia felt that it was indeed that. She ran out of the room, packed her bags, said goodbye to Prudence, and left the ashram. Paul McCartney returns to London on March 26, 1968. Paul, Jane, and Neil Aspinall returned to England from Rishikesh, leaving George, Patty, John, and Cynthia in India. In part 2 of the Get Back documentary, Paul McCartney reflects on the Beatles' trip to India, revealing his thoughts on their experience. Paul expresses his belief that, during their time there, they were not being authentic. Instead, he felt they were adopting a facade. He describes the atmosphere as reminiscent of school, where the band members struggled to be themselves, putting on personas for the occasion. Paul references a video captured during the trip, showing John being guided along a path by Maharishi. He remarks, "You're there, but it's just not you, John." John's response is a knowing grin, indicating his agreement with Paul's perspective. As the conversation unfolds, George Harrison inquires whether Paul regrets the trip. Paul asserts that he does not regret it. However, he wishes they could have approached it with a more relaxed demeanor, being true to themselves throughout the experience. George concludes the discussion with a poignant observation about the irony of their journey. They went there to find themselves, yet they were acting like anything but themselves the whole time. April 13th, 1968. John and Cynthia returned to London. George and Patty head south to India. Patty Boyd said, "George and I took a week-long trip to Madras to relax. One morning, seeing how beautiful the light was on his face, I took a photo of him. It seems to me that it was the last time I saw him so calm and serene. This is the photograph of George that I like the most."